Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It's a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. I say lovely, it's lovely weather, temperature-wise, but not lovely sky cover. It is that sort of gray sleet or gray sheet covered, solid cloud cover, not likely to rain, but not likely to get any sun today either kind of weather, which makes me just want to go home and curl up in a ball under a blanket. Oh well, can't do that. Too much to do. Well, I'm glad to be talking to you today. I have played some new games recently, so that means it's time for us to do another episode of Shooting from the Hip Triple Shot. Shooting from the Hip Triple Shot is a review episode in which I talk about 3 games that I've played recently for the first or maybe first and second time. And I talk about what those games are like, whether you should enjoy them, and whether I'd enjoyed them, and whether I think you might enjoy them. As a reminder, these are really first impressions, not full reviews, so take that with a grain of salt. This week I have 3 different, it's kind of 4 games, kind of 3 games to play or to talk about. I'll let you be the judge. And here, you're going to make that judgment right off the bat. The first game I want to talk about is from Lucky Duck Games. This is a series of mystery games called Crime Zoom. In the last week, I had a chance to play 2 of them. I played The Last Card and Bird of Ill Omen. I think that's what the 2 are called. There's something about a card. I think it's Last Card or Lost Card, something like that. It might be his last card. It could be the last card. And then, like I said, Bird of Ill Omen. In both of these games, you are ostensibly a detective of some sort trying to solve a mystery of a murder. I don't know if all the games in the series are murders, but the first 2 that I played are murders. As with most mystery games, I can't really tell you about the plot without giving it all away. But I will say that these are nicely intricate plots, probably on the level of a Law and Order episode or a episode of one of those serialized detective shows like Castle. So you get a flavor of mystery, you get some details, you get a variety of red herrings or misleading leads, but over time you can piece it together in about 45 minutes. The mechanism for the game starts with a grid of cards that put together show a scene, a crime scene. As you play, like this would be a fine solo game. I played it in 3 players both times. As you play, you choose a card and you flip it over. When you flip it over, you get details about the stuff that was on the front of the card, and sometimes those details will then give you a number that will let you pull a card from the deck. So the game it's just a deck of cards. In one of them was 54 cards. It wouldn't surprise me if they were both that size. And the initial grid was I think 9 cards or maybe 12. And when you flip one, it tells you a little bit about what you found, and then it gives you a couple potential leads that you could follow. If you follow those leads by going into the deck and getting the card with the appropriate number on it, and then looking at what's revealed when you pull that card. Sometimes what's revealed will be a dead end. Other times what's revealed will give you another lead. As you go through, there's no timing element or tracking element. There's nothing in the game that, some mysteries will do a thing where if you've seen this, then you can go that. Oh, I stand corrected. There is a little bit of that, but not very much. And you're always allowed to go back and look at other leads that you passed up earlier. The game does not have a timed element, but instead it's a resource element, much like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. The number of leads that you follow determines how many stars you get. And then you record the stars in the back of the rule book to compare with other people. And you get stars for the questions that you can answer, and then you also get stars for all the cards that you did not look at. Not 1 star per card, but there's a ratio of some sort. So when you finish the game, you count up how many cards you did not look at, and those are additional points in your game. That's the pressure to keep from just investigating everything. As far as mystery games go, I would say these are right in the middle in terms of complexity and difficulty. They're not as hard as something like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but probably on par with that series Undo, which I mentioned a couple times in the podcast. The weaving of clues together is usually pretty good, although some of the places you would get a clue or a kind of clue that wasn't entirely evident from looking at the card. You know, you might see a desk and there's a computer on the desk and you're like, oh, you want to check out the computer. And so you look at that card and what you see instead is what was in the desk. That's an example. I don't think that particular thing happened, but that sort of thing happened. So it does lack the specificity of something like Chronicles of Crime, where you can scan specific items and investigate them. But on the other hand, this one felt like a board game. I didn't feel like I was playing with an app. The one big downside to this mystery series is that they don't really give you a scale of achievement. So when you finish, you have a star score, but there's nothing to tell you whether that's a good score or not. And so that part was a little underwhelming. I don't really understand why you score a game if you don't have a way to say, hey, you did a good job, hey, you could have done better, etc. All that aside, I thought these were fine mysteries. I mean, if you're really into mystery games or games that have this kind of puzzly element, it would fit in those genres. I wouldn't put it in the top 2 or 3 brands, but they were an amusing way to spend an hour. I enjoyed them, and I'm happy to have played them. And while I will happily play other ones if they come up, I am not planning to buy any of them. So maybe that tells you what I think of them. That's Crime Zoom from Lucky Duck Games. Next up I have is Vivid Memories from Floodgate Games, designers Matt Dunstan and Brett Gilbert. Vivid Memories is supposedly a game about building up an archive of memories about stuff or something. It's infuriatingly vague in what the theme is about. In the game, it's essentially sort of halfway between Azul and Calico. In the game, you are drafting tiles from a board, and those tiles feel very much like Azul tiles. In fact, they're the same material. They're a little smaller. They're actually very similar in size and shape to the tiles from Azul Summer Pavilion. In the game, you're drafting. You can do 3 different ones, or 2 of the same, or just 1. If you draft 3 or 2, you have to put them in one of the hex spaces on the board. If you draft 1, you put that on the board, and then you're allowed to move tiles in a certain way. If you're the last person to take a tile off of, so the little tile tokens that you take are put on top of these cards. If you're the last one to take a tile off of a card, then you get the card as well. And the card gives you a couple different kinds of scoring opportunities. First, it gives you a transformation power that lets you rearrange your grid of tiles. And then it also gives you a scoring opportunity that depends on you having arranged your grid of tiles in the correct way. Ultimately, there's a bunch of different ways you score points. You score points for matching those tiles I was talking about. You score points for connecting colored tiles of different types across the board using hexes that include the tiles. And at the end of the game, you also score points for one of the colors that you were secretly striving to get. I really wanted to like this game. I like Brett Gilbert and Matt Dunstan generally. Chocolate Factory is very good. Elysium is amazing. But this one just really fell flat for us in a number of ways. First off is the theme. I could not make sense of the theme. I didn't understand what we're trying to do. They had a bunch of words in there that were meant to give us an idea of somehow collecting memories or something, but it didn't really there wasn't a lot of sense to it. The art was very pretty. It's Andrew Bosley art. The drawings are all neat, but they don't really feel like they have much in the way of narrative coherence. Thematically, this just did not work for us. Mechanically, it's very confusing. For example, there's these hex tiles, and when you put 3 tiles in these hex tiles, they have to be formed in a triangle. And those so each triangle is sort of touching 3 of the 3 sides of the hex. Because it's sort of it's either 2 or 3, I guess. It'd be 2 sides. But they don't fit exactly. They're kind of these weird, it sort of fits in okay. It makes it easy to move them, but they don't fit exactly. More importantly, the orientation that you put the tiles in the hexes doesn't matter, which frankly, it's really important. This game would be impossible if it did matter. But the fact that it doesn't matter is super confusing because if it did matter, then when you put things next to each other in hexes, then there's an adjacency element where this piece of this token is next to this other token. But instead it just matters, are they in the same hex? It's confusing. And then all of the different scoring elements feels like throwing spaghetti at the wall to me. In particular, the secret scoring goal that you have at the end in terms of points, I guess you could really double down on taking tiles that match that color, but then you're never going to score anything else. And the rhythm of the way you take the tiles makes it very hard to control which cards you're going to get. You can maybe force getting one, but having much control at all is pretty difficult. Finally, the game is not intuitive about where your points are going to come from. Case in point, my wife kept scoring these cards. She probably had 7 cards at the end of the game, whereas I had 3, I think. But I won by a clear margin because I completed this connection bonus thing. Well, I'm not sure what it is about it, but the connection bonus thing just does not feel as significant as the cards. I guess because you're doing a lot more with the cards. You're taking them out of the display, you're attaching them to the top of your display, you're using them to do actions, you're scoring them. It feels very significant to score these cards. But then at the end of the game, completing one of the 3-point sort of memory slot things, which I haven't even really explained, got me more points than her having all those cards had done for her. So this might be the sort of game, Vivid Memories might be the sort of game that's really fun if everybody's familiar with it and you're all kind of good at it. And it feels like it's trying for the same kind of crunchy agony that Calico gives you, in that you have a bunch of different competing scoring pressure and you're trying to make them all work at the same time, and you really just can't. You kind of have to pick and choose, and every time you make a choice, it's limiting your options on other choices. But ultimately what it felt like was just confusing and really not a good fit for us. I played this game borrowed from a friend. I didn't buy it, so I don't know if, sometimes they say when you buy a game, you're more inclined to like it. This game was not a good fit for us, and I can't say I would suggest playing it. I don't know if someone brought it to my game club and set it up and said, hey, I want to play this. I'm not sure I would hop into that seat right away. I guess I might, because I like playing games with friends, but it wouldn't be because of the game. So that's Vivid Memories, not my favorite from Floodgate Games. All right, then finally I got to try a famous beast of a game. This is the Gallerist. The Gallerist is perhaps the best known of the Vital Lacerda big, chunky, meaty Euros. In this one, you are a gallery owner. It's really a market simulation of how the art market works, and almost a satire of galleries and gallery ownership. In the game, you are a gallery owner, and your gallery is in part of a sort of neighborhood of different galleries where you're all competing for the same collectors, VIPs, and I'm not sure what the third category is. There's 3 different kinds of art patrons. In the game, each round you're going to take one action by moving your token to one of the 3 spaces that it isn't on already, and then you can leave one of your assistants behind in the spot you vacated if you have any assistants available to leave. When you move to the new spot, you get to take one of 2 actions at that spot, and each of these actions is one of the main ways that you move the game forward. You can buy paintings, you can sell paintings, you can discover artists, you can do this weird mini game off on the side that I'm not really clear narratively what it was. Part of it seems to be an auction, but then there's something else that just gets you sort of additional bonus points. You can hire more assistants to help you. You can amplify the fame of an artist. So all of those things interplay, and ultimately it becomes a game about buying and selling art. You want to buy it when it's cheap, then make it expensive by promoting an artist up to famous levels, and then sell that art when it's expensive. You also get some points for how the art is arranged in your gallery at the end of the game, and what collection of art you have in your sold art pile. You also get points for turning artists into masters. If they get up to a certain level of fame, then they actually retire from producing art, and unless you had a contract with them, they won't make any more art for you. And then, like I said, there's this marketplace of these assistants that you're constantly recruiting, because some of the places you put them, they will hang out and then come back to you. Some of the other places you put them, they will be stuck permanently. So you have to keep recruiting more of them so that you can use them. One thing that's interesting toward the end of the game is that money is points in the game as well. So there is an element in which whenever you spend money, which you're doing constantly to do all these different things, you're also spending your points. And I like that balance because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to do an action if it's going to cost you 8 money and get you 6 points, which the points at the end, it's converted into money. So that's an interesting little twist that I don't know that I realized early on. It was clearly part of it, but I don't know that I realized it. There are a couple things about this game that are pretty unique and interesting. One is this marketplace of assistance. If you manage it well, you can get a bunch of extra actions. The way that works is when you're leaving your assistant, whenever you leave a spot, you can leave one of your assistants on the spot that you've left. So if, I took the action to recruit a artist, then when I leave that space on my next turn, I can leave one of my assistants in that space. Then if another person goes to that space in order to recruit an artist, then they bump my assistant or kick them off. And the cool thing about this is after that person takes their turn, then before I take my turn, I get to take a kick off action, which allows me to do another action from that space by spending some fame, or to do some of these like bonus actions that are called executive actions. In this game, you get to do one main action and one executive action each round. If that sounds familiar, it is also a thing that Lacerda later used in On Mars, the idea of executive actions and main action. The game is beautiful to look at. It's designed by Ian O'Toole, the graphic design, and the layout is this sort of isometric view that's pretty stunning. Whenever you buy art from one of the artists, then you flip the card over and it shows the art kind of displayed in the gallery. And you slot it into one of the spots in your gallery, and the way the art matches together, it looks like you have displayed this piece in your gallery. It's really nice. The way that the patrons move around is really interesting. Whenever you sell a piece of art, you have to remove one patron from your gallery back to the central area where the patrons come from. And the interesting twist there is the person that you move out of the gallery is generally the person that you would have wanted to benefit from being in the gallery. So if you move one of the buyers out or the collectors, then after that you get to take the money action, which is something that you want more collectors in the gallery to do. I haven't even talked about the economy of moving these visitors around. I'm not going to today, but it's another piece of the game. Like On Mars, which is the other Lacerda game I've played, this is a heavy, deep game full of lots and lots of different mechanisms and choices and places to go and things to do and elements to manage. It's about scaling your efficiencies and ramping up bonuses so that when you get to the end of the game, you are scoring things 2 or 3 times. But also about sort of managing your minor efficiency on a tactical level so that every turn you can kind of do the maximum amount of things you can do. I can absolutely see why The Gallerist is a highly praised game, and I really enjoyed it. I definitely want to play again when I get the opportunity. I will say the theme does 0 for me. I don't like the theme. The art is not particularly compelling. In fact, I think that's part of the joke. And like I said, it seems to me to be a satire of the art world more than love for it or simulation for it, and that's fine, but I don't have a strong enough feeling about the art world one way or another to care that it's being satirized. So ultimately the theme leaves me pretty cold, and I generally want the theme to make me more enthusiastic. I think I liked On Mars better as far as things go, but then again, On Mars is a later design, so one would hope that it would be better in some ways. Ultimately, I really enjoyed The Gallerist, and if you like that kind of game and get a chance to play it, I would recommend. It's definitely worth taking a look at. Have you played any of these games? Have you played Vivid Memories? Have you played The Gallerist? Have you played Crime Zoom? If so, head over to Board Game Geek and visit Guild 3269 and share your thoughts about these games with us. Well, that's about it for me today. I hope that you've enjoyed your walk with me. Thanks for coming on, and I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.